which was one of those first games in which we really saw that connection between Pedri and Messi that everybody was talking about. I'm not sure if he'll do it again, but since Sevilla really did not have an antidote, Lopetegui did not come up with anything in order to counter that 3-5-2 this weekend. So why not? It makes sense for this match.
Well, I think the why not would probably be what the importance of Pedri is in that system. But in all honesty, though, the more I thought about it, he winds up being more important in that 4-3-3 because of the defensive job that he does have in that 4-3-3. So the argument as to with Pedri, who was out for 2 weeks with that calf injury, unfortunately, you think about the different options to replace him, whether it's Ricky Puig. We can do the ES Moriba now, or we can do it later, depending on what you want to do. But ES Moriba, who came on as a substitute instead of Ricky Puig on Saturday, but I don't really know if it's instead of. I think let's do this now. Let's get into it. I think I'm not surprised if we see ES Moriba starting against Sevilla over Miralem Pjanic. We don't even know if he'll be back in time. So the only other player, and this is because Carlos Alenya is out on loan at Hetafe, and there really aren't any other options in terms of how this squad was built. So ES Moriba was trusted. He came in, did well. We saw what he did against Alaves, which I consider, again, a 98% good, and then the one, obviously, terrible mistake, whatever, and that's going to happen. And I'm glad that happened against Alaves in a blowout win. You almost never expect him to make that kind of mistake again at first-team level. As an 18-year-old, I think he has a different profile, and these people have heard me talk about and praise the fact that with Barca B, he is not this midfielder that everybody thinks he is, but he is a player that, and why I think he got those minutes, not over Puig, but because in that game, in that 3-5-2, he was calling out for a midfielder in the area to win the second ball. And when you're playing that 3-5-2, you have to win the second ball. And Barca did that very, very well in a way that they haven't really done too much this season in other formations. And Busquets this season, when Barca winning the second balls, he looks really good. When Barca aren't winning the second balls, then he looks a step slow, and Barca looks a step slow, and they look defensively frail. So they were winning the second ball, and ES Moriba with Barca B has done that very well. The fact that he's getting assists, even for Barca B, he doesn't really get too often. He has a one goal, and he has a couple assists, but he's not really that attacking midfielder as everyone thinks he is, like a Paul Pogba. He really is a box-to-box midfielder at Barca B, and that's a job that Koeman is tasking him to do, and that is to win the second ball. So I would not be surprised at all if we saw ES Moriba start this match, but it's a matter of personnel as well.
Right, I think there are a couple of things there that are interesting. One is that the second balls are not necessarily won by Ilaix Moriba, but when you press as a team, that puts the opponents under pressure, that their passes are less accurate, and that is also a way to get those second balls. So Ilaix is more physical, so people focus on that, but basically presses very well without being physical. When he was subbed out against Sevilla, he had only had 26 attempted passes. So in 70 minutes for a midfielder of his profile in that position in the center of the pitch, that is very low. So, but he makes a lot of yards. However, Ricky Puig also likes to press. And he does so quite well. He's very fast, a lot faster than people give him credit for. So we'll see. I also think what you mentioned was very interesting, that Koeman did not seem to care at all about the mistake that Ilaix made against was it Alaves? So that was very nice to see, and it will be interesting to see what he's going to do. I don't think Pjanic is going to play. I would not at all be surprised if it's Moriba, but he might not even go for 3-5-2, in which case we're going to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, you can't honestly think that it's going to be Griezmann on the bench in two big, important matches, right? And that's been the issue with Griezmann this season, that when he went on that fine form in January and February, you see the detractors now saying, well, look who was on the schedule. Look who Barcelona wound up getting 14 straight results against. You can't really say that they've won that big match this season, other than when Real Sociedad was near the top of the table, and there was that win in a few months ago, and then this win against Sevilla. Those are the two biggest matches that Barca got major points out of this season. And yeah, they got the draw earlier with Sevilla in the season, but Sevilla were worse than they were, and Barca were still kind of going through the wrong thing. But to the point, back to Griezmann, that we saw that 3-5-2, what was best about Dembele was his verticality. That we saw this him run into spaces that aren't necessarily available to him. And then even looking at the heat map, Dest was farther forward than anybody else as a wingback. And so it wasn't a matter of playing a 3-5-2 with Dembele as a wingback on the left, or Griezmann as that wingback on the left. or right, you are actually playing two fullbacks as your wingbacks. So that means that in that formation, there is really no place for Martin Braithwaite, especially with playing with Messi, and there really is no place for Griezmann. So, I mean, you can't possibly make me believe that Koeman is going to leave Griezmann on the bench for two straight matches, in two big matches, even if that is what, I mean, might be best for the largest number of players in the squad. And I guess, Levon, the bigger question, I know you're responding to Griezmann, but the issue all season long that Francesca and I go on and on and on about when you talk about formation, Koeman's ideas, how do you get the best out of the largest number of players in the squad? Because it's a squad that Messi said over the summer doesn't all the way make sense, and it won't make sense because you have a lot of parts that it just doesn't fit one system or one fluid way, that you have players like, again, Griezmann and Coutinho will never really fit with Messi. It's not the profile player they are. And Dembele playing off Messi only makes sense when you have an Ansu Fati or another winger on the other side, right? So it's right. Never really a solution that I don't think Koeman, and people all keep getting on me that I'm defending Koeman, but it's a matter of no matter what the manager would be, you have a squad that was never really going to perfectly fit together, and Koeman's had to try out a million different things based on the situation as to what he could possibly try to get the best out of.
I think the 4-2-3-1 made a lot of sense. That it did not work might be the formation, or it might just be simple squad dynamics, or any other number of reasons. I completely forgot about Griezmann. My first thought when Pedri went out, and after the match I thought, well, then Messi will slide back into midfield in Pedri's slot, and it will be Griezmann and Dembele up top. Griezmann is actually a lot better at making those runs and especially finishing when he receives a through ball, because that's actually one of Dembele's weaknesses. He generally does not like to receive the ball into space. He likes to receive it at his feet, and if there's space behind the defender, he can then dribble past him and take advantage of the space, but he does not like to make that run and then finish off through balls that are being fed to him. The question then becomes, of course, if Messi plays where we saw Pedri on the weekend, then in attack he can create a lot of danger there because of being Messi, of course, but he cannot defend as well as Pedri, and much less a prolonged effort. So it will be interesting to see what Koeman does. Another thing that he could do is he could try Griezmann in that slot, although in the midfield slot, I mean. But I don't know how that would work out.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it does make a bit of sense in that the defensive responsibilities for Messi playing just off the shoulder of Dembele, that press worked rather well. I think that was arguably the best pressing 90 minutes we saw from Messi this season, potentially. And, yeah, it's not a matter of intensity, or rather, it was that we've seen in previous matches against Athletic Club, even though it was a loss in the Spanish Super Cup, Messi was working hard in that match, but the team was not pressing in unison together. And it's interesting to note as well that in that 3-5-2, we haven't mentioned Frankie de Jong, who was one of the best players in January and February, was really thriving as that box-to-box midfield in the 4-3-3. Now, he takes a much more reserved role, and in the same way of that 4-2... And I guess to say, we're getting in the weeds of formations, but it's fine to get in these conversations when you have a formation change. That in that 4-2-3-1, we thought on paper that Busquets and de Jong together would make sense. And yet, in that 3-5-2, now that actually does make sense with Busquets and de Jong together, because de Jong is allowed to offensively, in possession, have that space. And I've been talking in recent weeks about, and I'll keep talking about it, in that rest defense, as what are the positions of the Barca players right before they lose the ball. So when Messi dribbles straight up the middle, and you saw against Sevilla, that's what made Barca so defensively sound, that when Messi had all that coverage in the middle of the field right behind him, that it wasn't worrying about getting in the positions to get out that counterattack, it wasn't running back into your spots, it was that Barca were already set up with that rest defense, that the minute Messi lost the ball up ahead, it's high risk, rather it's low risk, high reward. Where Messi, if he can dribble past 5, as he did on, what was it? I think it was, leading to an almost goal by whoever it was. I don't remember who it was. I think it was maybe Death Shot. So on the Death Shot, when they were setting up possession in the final third, Messi winds up dribbling past 4, and now you've got a shot on goal, clear shot. clear target. Barca just didn't finish. And when he did lose the ball in those circumstances, in earlier weeks in that 4-3-3, now you're hoping that Pedri and De Jong were in the right position. But if De Jong had made a run to the box and then Messi loses the ball, now you've got a problem on your hand, and it's Busquets in a one-on-one counter-attack situation. But in that 3-5-2, you have Busquets able to always set up and in complete preparation for the counter-attack. And as much as people want to say he's lost a step, sure, he's lost a step, but he also, the thing between the ears hasn't aged at all. The thing between the ears still knows where he needs to be on those counterattacks. Sometimes physically he just can't get to those spots, but in that 3-5-2, he's always going to be able to get into that spot because he's able to read the game so well when Messi is going to give up the ball. He doesn't have to need to help offensively in that way, up the middle.
Exactly. I think the other thing with the 3-5-2 is, apart from it working well against Sevilla, long term, it's not really an option for Koeman.
Right.
So it might work well now, but if you say, okay, I'm going to stick with that formation, then, when Ansu Fati is gone, you're going to have both, or you're going to have two of Ansu Fati, Griezmann, and Dembele on the bench. And that just doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
so that's another problem with that formation.
Yeah, I mean, it's this odd thing that we can argue all this season, and this is, for Frances, he always feels like he's saying the same thing week in and week out, because we are. We're looking ahead to next season, and Ansu Fati is arguably, I mean, as he was in the first 2 months, aside from Messi, whether or not Messi is staying or leaving, Ansu Fati is the most important offensive player that Barcelona has. So getting the best out of Ansu Fati is going to be priority number one, over Dembele and Griezmann and Coutinho, whichever ones are still around in the club next season. So it's interesting that Ansu Fati and all of these experiments are happening without him. Where when he was around, he only played in that 5-2-3-1. I mean, then that 4-2-3-1. So we haven't seen him in the 3-5-2. We haven't seen him in the 4-3-3. You'd think that Ansu Fati on the left in that 4-3-3 is going to be absolutely devastating. And those chances that he does, I mean, his chance not chance creation, but his chance finishing rate is very, very high. Much higher than Griezmann, much higher than Dembele. So you're thinking about all the chances, and that was the issue against Sevilla the first time. Barca didn't play poorly in the first leg of the Copa del Rey. Sevilla finished their chances through some really, as I said, individual efforts from Koundé. I mean, what a goal that was. Hats off to him.
Yeah.
But Barca, if they finished their chances, it's a different tie. It wasn't that Sevilla blew Barca out 2-0. And Ansu Fati, if he's there, Barca finished their chances. So I don't know as much it's a system problem as much as it's just Barca don't finish as often as they should.
Well, we don't finish as much as we should, although that our finishing is not as bad as the first couple of months of the season.
For sure.
And the other one is all of the gimmies that we give up in our defense, which is just absurd. I don't think I've ever seen where we have conceded so many goals because of defensive errors. The thing with Ansu Fati is that, and this is very interesting, we have Messi, and Messi used to be impossible to defend. Now he's just difficult to defend. He used to be impossible to defend. We have Dembele, and defending Dembele is also a nightmare. However, Ansu Fati, he's a little bit like Cristiano Ronaldo. You can defend him, and you can keep him quiet, but he's going to score.
Yeah.
Like, he has this innate ability to just pop up right at the exact right time, and put the ball in the net. So I think that if we're talking long term, to have Ansu Fati on the left, and then whoever we end up in the middle could be very interesting. Ideally, we have somebody in the middle who defenders have to worry about.
Hey everyone, I want to tell you about Hustle, a brand new target for you to host your very own podcast here at Hustle was created to give everyone the opportunity to take your podcast to the next level. Or if you want to host a podcast and you don't know where to start, Hustle is the perfect place to do. As part of the program, you will receive personal cover art, Q&As with Bluewire's top podcasters, access to our community Discord, and an e-learning course for tips. On top of that, we'll have a daily show that has Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and all that. The best part is, you can get all of this for only $15 a month, the same rate as any other hosting site would charge you for just the initial setup. So whether you're starting from scratch or have an existing show that you want to grow, Hustle is an open door for leveling up your first podcasting experience. Acceptance into the program is limited, so get your application in today. To apply, go to bwhustle.com/join. Check out the description box of this episode to find out more. That's bwhustle.com/join. Yeah, for sure. It's going to be, as far as what the attacking talent is in Barcelona, it continues to be the question of who can you get the best out of. and it's a hierarchy of if you're getting the best out of Messi. I mean, throwing Fati out for a second because he's not available because Coutinho. But if you're getting the best out of Messi and Dembele and De Jong and Pedri, that's enough, right? You don't necessarily need to be getting the best out of Griezmann and Braithwaite. You never have a system around Braithwaite, right? As long as you can get the best out of X number of players, you're fine. And I think when you talk about system, what's been so positive, and I went on the radio show this past week that will be out. I'll plug it whenever it comes out. And I talked about the academy, and I came on. It was not a Barca related thing, and so. When you speak about the academy, the La Masia is seen with obviously great reference. But I think over the last 6, 7 years, because of Sergio Roberto being the final one to come from, and then Ricky Puig having trouble breaking through, and XY, all these different things. And obviously Ansu Fati, they go, well, you know, I don't think they almost see Ansu Fati as a academy product, even though he severely is, right? And he's a testament to the academy. Okay, so obviously on the Barcelona podcast, we are biased to saying that I watch Juvenil A matches. I watch occasional Juvenil B matches. I watch Barcelona B, and I'm telling you that there is still so much talent in La Masia. And I've been doing that for 2-3 years as these players aren't breaking through. Now comes this moment where it seems like the dam is about to break. And I don't think this is a fake thing that Francesco did not. That if 2 or 3 Barcelona B generational players break through, you can still build a team that way. And then the rest of it is all the rest of the talent elsewhere. Because to be a global brand and be a global Champions League competing, like, you can't possibly get all these players from the Catalonia region, you know, around the world. It's a global game. You cannot possibly get that kind of the collection of talent in such a small space. It doesn't happen. Anyway.
It does have a quick question.
Yeah.
Are you talking about 2 or 3 players breaking through per season or per generation?
Well, somewhere in between. I mean, I can't speak for Francesco. Again, that's why he's on the show normally. But for me, it's that I hope to see every 2 to 3 years, 2 to 3 players break through. So it's not necessarily 1 year per year, 1 per year, but if Barcelona, and it doesn't have to be the starters. That's the other point too. That Barcelona can be player 24 out of a 25-man squad, and you've got a good player at your 22nd to 24th best player. And the same argument can be made for Oscar Miguel and ES Moriba. This is why I bring this up. ES Moriba has been touted for quite a few years now, and I've done my best, as people who write Barca blog, whatever, not to overhype this kid. Because there is certainly, especially if you watched him last year with Barca B. It was his first year with Barca B, when he really was still Juvenil A age. Obviously, he's only 18 now. So he was 17 with Barca B in the 3rd division. He didn't really look like he was fitting. It was the first time in his career where the players on the other side of him were 35 years old, and they were just as strong, just as fast, and these were athletes that he had to get used to, having always been one of the biggest and strongest players at every level, right? And the way that he's adapted this season and seemingly found himself in the 3rd division, which is a different player than he was, as I said, when he was the biggest player on the field. He could do whatever he wanted. He could score goals, long-range shots, whatever. Now he has to find his spots. He takes long shots occasionally, but he has to find and pick his moments. But regardless of all that, ES Moriba, because of his size, because of what he's showing in the ball this week, was always considered a future star. That's why he's the best paid player in the academy. I mean, Barca have Ian Martin, who has a guy, right? So you hope that ES Moriba down the line, in 5 years' time, he's a starting midfielder. That's what you hope for Barcelona. He's a starter. Oscar Miguel, though, I mean, I watched him for years, and listeners of the pod know I've said this, that I watched him for 2 or 3 years with Barca B, and I thought that this, or last season, was going to be his final one at the club. He was the 3rd or 4th option at center back for the B team last year. He was also the backup right back. So he would come off the bench a lot, or there was a lot of injuries, so he would start in time. This was never who Oscar Miguel was. He was always his player who was just on the fringes of the B team. And now you tell me that he plays so well and he finds his spots and I mean, it's just weird. I don't want to go too far, right? I don't want to say that, hey, you just got to give these kids a chance, because Miguel hadn't really earned the opportunity to the first team. But now he's in the first team. What is a really promising first-team player? Do I ever think he's going to be a starter? I don't think so. But if Oscar Miguel is your backup right back, you're in a good spot. If he's your backup, or if he's your 4th quarter he's not a good player. And I think that's just been a testament to the academy, saying that you can both get the future star in ES Moriba, but you can also find a rotation player. And it's not necessarily every player has to be a star. And that's why a lot of players leave, because they think they're going to be the star. But if you can get the fringe players to come up from the academy as well, then that's the true power of the academy, to get both your stars and those fringe players, depending on the generations.
Yeah, I think Oscar Miguel, he's probably like the happiest person in the whole world right now. Like every night he goes to bed and he's like still squeezing his arm. Like, is this really happening?
Yeah.
I mean, even at a level so high as the Barcelona youth system, where they scout and they get the best kids in Catalonia, and not just the best kids in Catalonia, but also some of the best people, best young players in Spain from a very young age, like Ansu Fati, for example. It's not a coincidence that Ansu Fati ended up in Barcelona. They went to Sevilla when, how old was he? 10 years old? 11
Yeah,
years old?
he was discovered by Barcelona at 9, and then he came to the academy at I think 11. And same with Gavi, who just made his Barca B debut. He's a Real Betis product. So yeah, right. And at Sevilla, that bloodline too. Juan Miranda's another one. So those are all from the Sevilla region. Yeah.
So even at that level of excellence and talent, the amount of kids that make it, not even at Barca, but in professional football,
right,
is maybe 1 or 2 per team. So to expect somebody to break through every year, that might be a bit much. And I don't care if it's a future starter or a squad player, to break through and be there to stay for the next 5-10 years. I think that's a bit much. I think systematically we have to do a lot better than we have done for the next 5 years. So the ones who are truly talented, like Thiago, you need to keep them. The ones who are talented enough for a backup role, like Grimaldo, he should have stayed at least a couple of seasons instead of getting Digne. But I also think it's generational. So it's normal that after the amazing generation of Xavi, Puyol, Iniesta, and after that came Messi, Piqué, and Cesc, they're kind of overlapping generations. To get that kind of talent is not normal. Like, it just does not.
Right.
That happens maybe once in a lifetime. So now to see kids like Ansu Fati break through and push, who I still think has enormous talent. All these kids in the background, like what's the Moroccan kid? He's 16, Juvenil A, but he's getting some games in Barca B as well.
Oh yeah, he's a Comas. Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's 16. He's got magic in his feet. Yeah, for sure.
And so on and so on. Like, let's hope we take advantage of it. At the same time, then I see all these people who say, well, if we lose Collado, it's a disaster. Jandro, he has to play now. Hold on. You're still, it's not like Barca still needs to compete. You cannot put 20, 18, 19, 20-year-olds out there. That's not going to work. So not all of them are going to make it. And even some of the talented ones will probably need to go somewhere else.
Well, I mean, what I've argued this year was that Collado was directly competing with Trincao, and Trincao, you paid what you did for him, so Trincao's going to get those minutes. And I think Trincao Trincao's also a year younger than Collado as well, should be mentioned. So while Collado, as I even said, even against Lleida yesterday, or 2 days ago, or yesterday, he was the best player on the field. He's been the best player in the 3rd division this season, as Alex Collado. However, he's, again, having to break in. He got injured at the beginning of preseason, and Barca had bought Trincao, so that's what he was competing with. Well, my argument for Jandro Orellana, who doesn't necessarily have the same potential maybe that Collado does, it's looked like, because Pjanic hasn't been the answer, that you're looking for a successor to fill in for Busquets. And so it's a matter of need. So why has Mingueza gotten an opportunity over Collado? Well, it's because Barcelona needed Mingueza profile. Why is Ias Moriba now getting his opportunity? Well, that's because Ias Moriba is, he makes sense that because Pjanic was injured, Ias Moriba sees his opportunity, and that's why we're seeing Ias Moriba, because Pjanic was hurt. And so, I mean, that's what it is. It's merely getting opportunities, and same thing with Ansu Fati. Ansu Fati was only called up because of injuries in the preseason. So then you got Ansu Fati, and then he scores that, what was it? He scored the first goal, I believe, was Osasuna, or whatever. Yeah. So he gets that header against Osasuna, and he puts himself on the map, and then he scores 5 goals in the first 2 months, and you're like, oh, okay, he's a first-team player. You can't argue. And Ias Moriba might do the same thing. If he goes out and starts against Sevilla in that second leg of the Copa del Rey, and he winds up having this, not even a great performance, but Barca wind up getting a result, and he wound up being an important player, then he's a first-team player, maybe now. I mean, that's what he gets. He gets paid to be a first-team player, unlike Jandro Orellana, right, who's expected to be maybe a player to break through, and he's going to have to wait and be patient. Well, I'll give you a final point on this, and then we're going to move on to the election. Final point for you?
To be fair on this, Koeman does a pretty good job at not really caring who gets paid what.
Yeah.
So Koeman will happily bench Miralem Pjanic to play Alex Moriba.
Which obviously makes everybody, giddy, right?
Of course.
We lose our minds when that happens, of course.
And before you move on, there's one anecdote. Since we're talking about young players, I missed Ansu Fati's debut.
Oh no!
It was the first match in the Camp Nou. I went to the beach with my family, with my wife and my daughter, and we have to take the train to go to the beach because we don't go to the beach in the city because it's just filled with tourists. So we go a bit further out. And I told them, well, it's the first match of the season. I'm gonna leave you guys early, and I'm gonna go watch the game, right? My wife's like, yeah. So I do exactly what I say. At some point, I say, okay, well, I'll see you guys at home, and I go to the stadium. I arrive at the stadium. I'm at the gates, and then I realized that I left my carnet, my season tickets, at home. I was like, oh my god, the first game of the season, I'm gonna miss it because I'm such an idiot that I left the thing at home.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna walk home and then come back, even though it's like 20 minutes. It's like, I ended up just watching the game at the bar because I didn't want to miss the beginning. So in the end, I actually missed Ansu Fati's debut.
Yeah, we've all been there. I think in college for basketball, I covered the basketball team. I was at every basketball game, and then I had like a little bit of a fever where I wasn't really feeling great, so I stayed in bed. And then there was a 75-foot buzzer beater at the end to win it.
Oh my god!
From the other half, from almost the other basket, our best player throws it up. 80 feet, 75 feet, and everyone, like my roommate, I could hear my roommate screaming from the gym, but I'd been at every game. I covered the team, I did play-by-play, and yeah, isn't that? It was nuts. These moments always happen. These are the ones you remember because you weren't there to remember them, but you remember them seemingly better. So, I guess to say going from that excitement to what is a little less exciting, but I don't know, somehow more important. It's less exciting, but more important is everything going on with the presidential election. Again, we're going to end with the Bartomeu stuff, but I want to do the election because Francesca and I have spoken in depth about the upcoming elections and the three candidates in Joan Laporta, Victor Font, and Tony Freccia. But regular listeners know that Francesca and I don't actually have a vote. As much as we love it, as much as we care, we actually don't have a vote because of we are not official socios. Because
most people don't have a vote.
Yeah. Because we're not located. But you, my friend, are in Barcelona, and my guest today does have a vote. So he won't be revealing who he's voting for. Don't worry about that. You can bother him.
I haven't decided yet.
He hasn't. Right. He's figuring it out, and we're going to figure out exactly why he's still figuring it out, because that's between him and his ballot. But he did watch the recent debate that Laporta did take part in. Unlike the first one when it was just Freccia against Font, Laporta took part in this one. So it is great and perfect timing to have you discuss this and give Francesca the time. So I'm going to ask you the hard one first. This is a difficult question. Aside from the obvious stuff about what he said, he said blah, 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 and we saw a lot in the debate that it was a lot of Xavi this, Xavi that, yada, 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 right? There's this oversimplification, I think, that Laporta is nostalgia, and he's going to show you what he did in 03, and he's going to, solve all the problems again as the white knight that he is. That Font is trying to push a project, and in recent weeks and months, that project is going to fall apart because of the belief he had in certain people to be part of that project. And then Freccia is the one that is hoping that his connections with Catalan society and what he has as far as the connections with current Barca are enough to kind of get him through. That seems to be the oversimplification. And so your reaction is fair to that oversimplification. And I think all that stuff that I mentioned is kind of negative. So I would ask you first, what positives do you see in each of these campaigns? You can go one by one if you'd like.
No, the reason I'm not saying anything is I'm thinking about Freccia.
Right. Well, I was going to set you up in that. It's fair that Freccia is not.
To Freccia's credit, I don't know if you saw the video of Laporta hugging the mannequin with Messi's shirt.
Oh, we did see it. Many of those in our Facebook listener group did see that. Yes.
Yeah. So on Twitter, it's just that video, but it was actually a documentary here on Catalan TV, where all three candidates were asked, were put in front of that shirt and asked, "Hey, what would you do if your first reenact your first conversation with Messi?" And I thought Laporta I thought it was a bit embarrassing for a grown man to start hugging his shirt. Victor Font kind of stumbled through it, did not really impress either. But Freccia had the dignity not to talk to a mannequin, but just to look at the camera and say, "Hey, Messi is the best player that we've ever had, and I have nothing but words of thanks
ಹೊರಗಡೆ ವೇಟ್
towards
ಮಾಡ್ತಾ
Messi.
ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಇವತ್ ನಿನಗೆ ಶೂಟಿಂಗ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ
So
ನನಗೆ
what I can
ಹೇಳೇ
say in
ಇಲ್ವಲ್ಲ.
favor of
ನೀವು
Faisal
ಅಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್
is
ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ
in
ಮುಂಚೆ
that
ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ.
particular
ತುಂಬಾ
sequence
important.
that lasted
ಇವತ್ತಿನ ದಿನ ನಿನ್
less than
ಜೀವನನೇ
1 minute of
ಬದಲಾಗ್ಬೋದು.
his life, he left with his dignity intact.
ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಶೂಟಿಂಗ್
Terrific.
ನಿಲ್ಸಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ.
Okay, so I should have phrased my question a little better. That this, while the election is, it appears that one.
ಒನ್ ಅವರ್ ಶೂಟಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಆಗೋದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಲಾಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾ?
ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ.
ನನಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಶೂಟಿಂಗ್ ನಿಲ್ಸಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ವಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ಅಡ್ವಾನ್ಸ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀನಿ, ಟೈಮ್ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ಹೋಗ್ಲೇಬೇಕು ನಾನು. ಒನ್ ಅವರ್ ಶೂಟಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಆಗೋದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಲಾಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಾ?
ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಅವನಂತ ಹುಡುಗ ನೀನ್ ಎಷ್ಟೇ ಹುಡುಕಿದ್ರು ಈ ಭೂಮಿ ಮೇಲೆ ಸಿಗಲ್ಲ. ಏನೇ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಮಾಡು. ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ನೀನ್ ಏನ್ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದೀಯಂತ ಆ ಹುಡುಗನ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಕ್ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಡ.
ಬರಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋ ಟೈಮ್ 9 ಗಂಟೆ ಮೋರಿ. ಜಾಯ್ದೀಪ್ ಅವರು ಟೈಮ್ಗಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆನೆ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ.
ಇನ್ನು 8 ಕಾಲ ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ಆದಷ್ಟು ಬೇಗ ರೀಚ್ ಆಗ್ತೀವಿ ಬಿಡು.
ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ,
ಏನಿದೆ ಅದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ?
ಪಾಟಿ ಶಬ್ದ ಮಾಡಿದೀನಿ.
ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ?
ನೀನ್ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಅಡಿಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯ ಅಂತ ಅವ್ನಿಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ?
ಇದನ್ನ ನಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ನಂಬ್ತಾರಾ?
ನೀನ್ ನಾಳೆನೇ ಅವನ ಮದ್ವೆ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾನ್ ನಿಂಗೆಲ್ಲ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ.
ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಮೊದಲೇ ದಿನಾನೇ ನಾನು ಅವ್ನಿಗೆ ಸುಳ್ಳು ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾ?
ನೀನು ಸುಳ್ಳು ಹೇಳೋದಿಲ್ವಾ?
ನೋಡು, ಹುಡುಗನ್ ಮನ್ಸ್ ಗೆಲ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮೊದ್ಲು ಅವ್ನ್ ಹೊಟ್ಟೆ ಗೆಲ್ಬೇಕು.
ಆಗ ಮೀನು ಅತ್ತೆ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ ಮೊದಲೇ ದಿನಾನೇ ನಾನು ಅವ್ನಿಗೆ ಸುಳ್ಳು ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕಾ?
ನೀನು ಸುಳ್ಳು ಹೇಳೋದಿಲ್ವಾ?
ನೋಡು, ಹುಡುಗನ್ ಮನ್ಸ್ ಗೆಲ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಮೊದ್ಲು ಅವ್ನ್ ಹೊಟ್ಟೆ ಗೆಲ್ಬೇಕು.
ಆಗ ಮೀನು ಅತ್ತೆ, ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ ಗಂಡನಿಗೋಸ್ಕರ ಕುಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರಿ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಅದ್ರಿಂದ ಏನಾದ್ರು ಸಹಾಯ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಕೊಡಿ ನಂಗದನ್ನ. ಮದ್ವೆ ನಿಲ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿದ್ರೆ ನಿಲ್ಲುತ್ತೆ. ನಾ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಡಿಗೆಯಿಂದಲ್ಲ.
ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾನೇ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ನನಗೊಂದು ಬೇಕು.
ಓ, ಋಷಿಕೇಶ್ ಇಂದ ಯಾವಾಗ
ಅದೇ ಮೊನ್ನೆನೆ ಬಂದೆ. ಇವನು ನನಗೆ ಆಧ್ಯಾತ್ಮ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡೋ ಅಣ್ಣ, ಋಷಿಕೇಶಲ್ಲಿರೋದು. ಇವ್ರ ಹೆಸರು ಜೀವನಂದ ಅಂತ.
ಅಯ್ಯೋ,
ಜೀವನಾನಂದನ? ಆ ಹೆಸರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ರು ಕವಿ ಇದ್ರಲ್ವಾ?
ಕವಿಗಳು ಒಂಥರ ಮನುಷ್ಯ ತಾನೆ. ಒಂದ್ ವಾರ
Welcome into the latest edition of Turning our attention to La Liga.
In 1991, a young boy would join La Masia, last dance as they say, and for Xavi that would be the 2014-2015 season.
Drinking water has always been a problem for me in Bangalore. I always forget to order water can in time and
Clearly on it, but it was not enough for him. Among all of this, Xavi would still play the South Africa World Cup, taking with him most of his teammates, except of course for Lionel Messi. And there he would once again put on his match but become champions of Europe for the first time in 44 years as Xavi took the Player of the Tournament award. Perhaps upset by the club's recent lack of success and fearing the problems that could come from the impending managerial change, Xavi would enter talks with Bayern, only to be stopped by childhood hero Pep Guardiola, who would become the new Barcelona coach and would promise Xavi not only great success, but that he would become one of the main men for the team. A year and a half later, Barcelona had conquered what is now known as the Sextuple, winning La Liga, the Copa del Rey, the Spanish Super Cup, the Champions League, the European Super Cup, and the Club World Cup in a single calendar year. As you might imagine, Xavi was elemental to this formation. With all these titles, this would already be considered the perfect year. But it was not enough for him. Among all of this, Xavi would still play the South Africa World Cup, taking with him most of his teammates, except of course for Lionel Messi. And there he would once again put on his magic show, providing 600 passes with an accuracy rate of 91%, completing the most crosses out of any player in the competition. Of course they won, there was no other possible outcome. Spain were simply the greatest national team the world had laid their eyes upon, and Xavi, as a Telegraph reporter said, was their beating heart, dictating the pulse of tiki-taka pass after pass. In the final, Xavi ran an astonishing 15 kilometers as Spain beat the Netherlands with a goal by Iniesta in extra time. The third ever to hold both the title of European and World Champions at the same time, since West Germany in 1974 and France in 2000. By the end of 2010, Xavi would come in third place in the Ballon d'Or behind Lionel Messi and Iniesta, his two partners in crime. As it seemed like it could only go down from here, Xavi would make sure to remain at the top, first helping Barcelona to get yet another Champions League title in 2011 as they beat Man United 3-1 in the final, and then in 2012 taking part in another Euros for Spain. At this time, everyone in the world was aware of Spain's exceptional squad. They were feared, but of course, there's always someone trying to steal your spotlight in football. In 2010, it was the Netherlands who nearly did the impossible. And in 2012, the closest anyone got to doing it was Portugal, holding Spain to a goalless draw, only broke in the penalty shootout as Bruno Alves hit the bar, and Spain progressed to the final, where they would beat Italy 4-0. Following this, Real Madrid would assemble an incredible squad built around Cristiano Ronaldo, and someone would finally defeat Barcelona as they would take the title of Spanish champions. This would also be followed with the rise of Simeone's Atletico, and suddenly the league would become very competitive. By 2014, Xavi would announce that he had played his last match for Spain, as the world champions would give in to the curse and be knocked out in the group stages. By then it was time for a last dance, as they say, and for Xavi that would be the 2014-2015 season. Clearly on his last legs, only averaging around 45 minutes of playing time per match, Xavi would try his hardest one last time before he put an end to his time at Barcelona. By this moment, he was more of a locker room figure than an actual piece of the tactical puzzle. Still, despite playing only 117 minutes across the knockout stages of that year's Champions League, Xavi would be one of the few players to be part of both the team who won the treble in 2009 and the team who would win it once more this time around. Following all of this, Xavi would take off to Qatar, playing the remaining 4 years of his career for Al Sadd, winning 4 trophies in his time there before retiring for good and taking over as the coach of the same team. Xavi was exceptional at most things you can do with a ball at your feet, but clearly one thing took the spotlight, and of course, that was his ability to look for space. Making it appear as if the game was played in slow motion, Xavi could make a through ball present itself to him out of thin air, making the job of whoever played ahead of him a whole lot easier. Witnessing him over and over again risk the tightest of passes and still somehow never losing possession was one of the most satisfying displays ever put on a football pitch. His efficiency could never be put into doubt, as the man would end his career with an astonishing 34 trophies, with 4 Champions League, 2 Euros and a World Cup. His cabinet will make even the greatest of the greats envy him. Xavi was the blueprint for the 2010 Spanish midfielder, a legacy that will never be taken away from him. Getting into our ranking system now, starting with finishing, really not the most prolific of midfielders at all, only breaking 10 goals in a season twice, he gets a 7 out of 10. Then playmaking, which in my opinion is his most impressive attribute, he gets a 10 out of 10. In dribbling, well, tiki-taka never allowed him to express himself on a pitch like that, but when he did, it was clearly exceptional, he gets an 8 out of 10. In terms of his speed and physicality, he gets a 7 out of 10. He was honestly very average for a top-tier player, which just goes to show how effective his playstyle was in terms of suiting his best traits and making the most out of his skill set. And finally, his mentality. Xavi always looked very focused, though he wasn't the most fiery player. He gets an 8 out of 10. Now we will focus on his legacy, first consistency and adaptability. Never got a good look at how adaptable he was, as he never left Barcelona for another top club, but he performed at every single stage, especially internationally. That way he still gets a 9 out of 10. When it comes to flair, the lack of skills could have made it a little dull, but his exceptional otherworldly passing ability made up for it, so it's a 9 out of 10.
Laporta is going to be the favorite. What is the discussion currently going on? Again, the word project is being thrown out, I think, improperly, where if you're the favorite, it's politics 101 to keep your plan close to the vest. Why would you put something out there for criticism if what you're doing, as in not doing anything, is going to lead you to the presidency? So it's completely fair that Laporta has not come forward with his project. Though with the debate, I think he's been prodded a little bit more to not reveal, but to say, hey, there's a problem. And Font and Laporta are the two that have, obviously there's three candidates, but we've known from the beginning that they're trying to put forth ideas, and they will put forth ideas to try to get Barca out of the financial issues they're currently having. So what are the projects? If you were asked, and this is what I'm asking you, if you were asked, what is Laporta's project? I'll do that, then we'll do Font. So we'll do them separately even. What is Laporta's project? And then what is he told, what has he's been said that not only what he's going to try to do, but what is his current project?
I don't know.
Right.
Maybe
that's true.
I still don't know. His financial project, there's something about, I don't know if it's bonds or that people can buy that will help the club get out of debt. But I'm not good at economics, and I'm not sure how that works. So then you have some candidates who say, no, this is not possible. It puts it at even more risk. Laporta says, no, you're lying. It does not put us on risk. This is something that maybe you have the wrong guest, but 99% of us who will talk about this actually do not know. Enough about it to know whether that is going to work or not. And the more you read about it, the less you know.
No, it's completely fair. But
you know,
it goes back to the politics of it. That I mean, that it's fine that it's unknown, because again, the unknown still supports Laporta's case, right?
Yeah.
That you'd rather it's about, do you trust him? Are you willing to trust him as they once did? And then Font, when I say what is Font's project, then obviously there's a little more detail there.
I mean, with Font also, you don't know until it happens, because Font talks a lot about multimedia. But as crazy as I am about Barca, I'm not going to pay for a Barca app on my phone. If Barca decides, we're going to ask everybody 10 cents or €1 a month to follow our Twitter account, I'm going to say, forget about it.
Right.
So I don't really know how much his plan of modernizing our club will actually help us or not. Freixa wants to sell Barca corporate for 250 million. First of all, I don't think he can, and second of all, I think that if he does, then the only reason that somebody would invest that money is because they expect to get better off of it in the long run, which leaves us without future income in the long run. A lot of what Laporta claims is that he has experience in turning the club around, both on a financial level and the sporting. Doesn't mean that repeat it. Well, I much prefer Laporta over the people who have been running the club the last 10 years.
Yeah. That's
So
yeah.
if I have to choose between Laporta and what we had, it's a no-brainer. But then again, does Laporta have the humility to realize that when he turned the club around, it was not him by himself, but it was him and an amazing team, many of whom are not here anymore.
Not only that, but working against him.
No.
I mean, when you talk about when going all the way back to the Catalan the academies, the fact that Man City, but because they have a stake in Girona, they have scouts in Catalonia as deep as what Barcelona has at the moment. I mean, and I'm not talking even Girona, but they obviously with Ferran Soriano and Chiqui Pacheco, they're looking to Catalonia as a region that Man City is almost trying to take as their territory as well in terms of scouting. When you look at the number of young Spanish talent there, so it's not even that Laporta had this great team then, but this team is now working for clubs in direct.
It was not him by himself, but it was him and an amazing team, many of whom are not here anymore.
Not only that, but working against him.
No.
I mean, when you talk about when we're going all the way back to the Catalan academy, we don't talk about their ownership, but because they have a stake in Girona, they have scouts in Catalonia as deep as Barcelona has at the moment. I mean, and I'm not talking even Girona, but they obviously with Ferran Soriano and they're looking to Catalonia as a region that Man City is almost trying to take as their territory as well. Scouting, look at the number of young Spanish talent there. So it's not even that Laporta had this great team then, but this team is now working for clubs in direct opposition of what he's trying to put forward. And to that point about Laporta too, this is again, the credit to him, I think, is deserved, is that he was president at a time when there was a global recession going on. And so his connections to Catalan business and we'll say the Catalan elites of the time were able to create some kind, I mean, he did have to make the connections, if you will, to bring that team into his club. And can he create a team similar to that again? We're not sure until it happens. And then the other part of Laporta is that the reason Barcelona were able to thrive so much with revenue is that because he did and his team had the they took chances. They listened to Johan Cruyff and they took chances, and the sporting project worked. And when the sporting project worked and Messi became the global superstar that he did and Champions Leagues were coming, then revenue was increased. And so if Barcelona have a sporting project that winds up winning 3 out of 4 Champions Leagues or whatever it may be, 2 in the next 4 years after next season, now the revenue is resolved. However, and I think the worrying sign to me, and this is going to directly connect to the Bartomeu stuff, the most worrying sign about the finances of the club are not Barcelona in 5 to 10 years. It's Barcelona and the short-term debt that they're currently worrying with. Now, this is what I've dug into in recent weeks, that short-term debt and what Barcelona do in the next 365 days is so terrifying. And that is what made the delay of the election of 4 months so terrifying as well. Those are the 2 parts that actually, I think, in the long run, are still going to be the scars that the club are left with. That because, and even though a president can come in, there's only so much that a president can do. But I do know that behind the scenes, a president can sign off on ideas that other people who are still working with good faith at the club are trying to put forward. They cannot get approval until the president comes in. So there are things in the works that are so close that aren't necessarily just, we're not talking about Bartomeu and his Goldman Sachs loan. We're talking about other things related to the club that are just waiting for approval and just waiting for institutional belief that a president will bring. And it takes us all the way back to the start of the club with Juan Gamper, where Juan Gamper wound up being this bigger figurehead, not in a Florentino Perez kind of way, but because he had been a former player and he represented the club in that way. And there have been presidents over time in the club's history that seemingly have come from within the club and moved up that way, and that's why everyone always says Gerard Piqué is a future president, for that very reason. That's what they want, but it doesn't necessarily fit what's on paper. And Laporta saying, hey, I'm with the club because I was the club before, is what makes me the best candidate for this job now.
Yeah, and there might be something in that, because also Laporta has a lot of charisma, and he has a big personality. So what you might see happen is that players who would not be willing to lower their wages, definitely not for Freisa,
Sure.
and maybe not for Font either, Laporta will be able to convince them, because he's Laporta. The same if you ask me, hey, to lower the debt, who would I prefer to send out to negotiate the lowering of that debt? I think Laporta can probably get more done than Freisa, which is nobody likes, and people will take advantage of, or Victor Font. Now, that's just a hunch. What do I know?
Right. Well, what we do know is that the way it's been run and those negotiations, that's been the problem. That starting with Messi, because not to say that Messi didn't respect Bartomeu, but he didn't like Bartomeu. There was no incentive for Messi to, as much as he loves the club, there was no incentive for him to work with Bartomeu. He didn't want to work with Bartomeu, and that led to the wage issue.
Right.
And that led to all the other players, collecting huge wages, and it winds up being an issue. So I think the first instance that we know, because again, the president will be, it's supposed to be announced on Sunday night, so Barcelona time. So in the afternoon here in the U.S., I'll know who the new president of Barcelona is. Again, most likely Juan Laporta. I think the first test is, even though these numbers aren't entirely public, when Eric Garcia, who Pep Guardiola has said will be coming to Barcelona free transfer, if his wages become public and we see what his wages are and where he stacks up in that wage hierarchy, we are going to know exactly the kind of pull. I think that's the first test. That's the first time where I think we're going to hint as to how wages are going to look going forward, because that is certainly going to be, in the long run, the way to get this club back on right. Again, it doesn't solve the short-term debt. I'm really interested to see what happens, but what I do know is, regardless of which three is elected, here's a transition. Regardless of which of those three is elected, I can't imagine anyone doing a poorer job than the former president in Josep Bartomeu, who was today arrested in relation to the i3 Venture scandal. The social media campaign, again, for those who were living under a rock, it was a social media campaign waged against players of the club. Now, he wasn't arrested. I want to make this clear, because Twitter can confuse people. He wasn't arrested for his connection to the mean things he said. You cannot go to jail for being mean to people on Twitter. Barcelona, I think, Levon, you may have gotten 2 to 3 months based on some of your ornery comments sometimes, not at people. It's never directed at people like Bartomeu and his group. But yes, you cannot go to jail. Just so you're put to ease, Levon. You cannot go to jail for saying mean things about clubs on social media. But it does come down to the money. That's where the problem is. And now, an external audit had cleared the club of any wrongdoing, but the investigation with local police, the Catalan police, has still gone forward. And that's why we're seeing these arrests now. The issue, for the reason him being jailed, is the way that money that it was circulated was delivered to the company in question. So allegedly, and allegedly is the key word here, the club paid 1 million euros per year in 200,000 euro installments for work that was valued between 150 and 175,000 euros. And those payments were pulled from different departments around the club and then sent to different companies that are owned by a businessman named Carlos Ibanez. So him owning those different companies, and then money going from different departments of Barca into different companies, that obviously always financially is going to raise some red flags. That's why the organized, or the investigation is being done by the financial crime unit in Catalonia. That is the ones who that are going forth with this investigation. So the other problem would be that if the Catalan police believe that Bartomeu and those connected to him tampered with evidence, as in destroyed it while this investigation was underway, that's why he, and then CEO Oscar Grau, and Jaume Masferrer, a former director, and then the club lawyer Roman Gomez Conti. Those are the 4 names that were arrested as of today, and the Catalan police have said that there might be others who are collected as well, and they might not actually go to jail or be put to trial or whatever, whatever it is, like everyone's going to be salivating at their mouth for. This might just be because the Catalan police raided the Barcelona office, and but say raided, they got the cooperation of the club, so it's not a raid. The club said, hey, we want the full judicial plan or progress to play out. So they did give access. This wasn't a raid. They were given access to the documentation that the Catalan police wanted to look at. So that I think these 4 potentially were jailed in the short term, so that there would be no tampering with evidence, and that investigation could go forward. So I think it is. Innocent until proven guilty, but as you know, Levon, if I say innocent until proven guilty, that means that I side with Bartomeu, who I said many unpleasant things about on the show. Yet, of course, it's siding with him if you say, yeah, guilty until proven guilty. There we go. Yeah. So this is a complicated thing where, once again, it comes down to money and things we don't understand. But people are frothing at the mouth. I mean, it seems like justice is coming, not for the club, because it's a terrible look for the club. Juan Laporta said, I think he's only said that this is a stain, another black mark on the club. This is not good. This is nothing, something to celebrate. But if justice is to be done, it helps close that chapter and put, we'll say, the evil of the club behind you, and to move forward into it gives you a bright light. It starts a new chapter where Bartomeu's gone and he's getting punished for he was the only evil thing at the club.
Somebody's going to sleep in prison tonight. It's not going to be me.
No.
Look, it's embarrassing.
Yes.
For the club. I was going to actually say that they are guilty until proven innocent, because we can all feel it. We've all seen what is going on with this club. I don't really think Laporta was 100% clean either. I don't know if we've ever had a president that has been 100% clean, knowing that corruption is endemic in Spain, as it is in the United States, as it is in many countries. Although in the United States this might not manifest itself so much with sports franchises, but here in Spain, football clubs are corrupt. So in this sense, it is not surprising. I don't think, or it would surprise me, if they found any evidence today. I can imagine that the people at the Barcelona offices were very cooperative with the police, because they've cleaned their file cabinets weeks, if not months ago. Because Barçagate is not new. What I'm curious about, somebody tweeted this earlier, is that there was an audit by PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Right, the external audit, yep.
And they signed off on this. And if you now hear how this was paid and how this was set up, I mean, how can you sign off on this?
Right.
So yeah, it will be interesting to see what's going to happen. I will not be sorry if Bartomeu spends a couple of years in prison. Not at all. I wish it'd be longer. He and Jose destroyed what could have been 10 of the most glorious years of our club, where we had a prime Lionel Messi. And if he goes down over something as ridiculous as a social media company sending out tweets to make him look good, to make some players not look, let him go down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a calculation that, I mean, what is a tweet? I mean, I remember reading the tweet disparaging Carlos Puyol. I mean, what's the point? I mean, why waste your energy to put yourself in jeopardy, put your reputation in jeopardy, to tweet out a mean thing about a person that is no longer even at the club because of the things that went on behind the scenes? Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it's negative. It's not so great, but I think, again, as we started the show talking about the Barca Sevilla stuff, and then going on to the club, again, the elections, like the election does not mean that everything is going to be great. There's a lot of problems to fix, but the idea, and I never disparage Culés from having hope. And that's what has survived the club from its Catalan roots on, that there's always hope. And when it's not just when there's Messi, but when there's the academy that's been built, when you're built on the ideals and Mesquite Club that Barca are meant to be built on. I'm excited at the notion that I'm not saying that Juan Laporta is that figurehead. It's not that he's an idol, but he represents a change of the page, if you will. And so my hope is that change of the page is that when people ask me, unlike in the last few seasons, when I go on another interview or another place and they ask me, oh, Mesquite Club, what does that mean? Because now everyone's questioning what it means. I want to be able to clearly and distinctly say I knew what it meant, and now I can confirm to you that that's exactly what it means. So that's what I want to be able to do. That's my mission for turning this page with the new election. So I think that'll wrap it up. Again, Levon, I want to say good luck in voting. I'm glad that you didn't have to make your mind up just yet. It's going to be between you and your ballot. So I think that'll wrap up another show, unless you want a final word.
I think whoever becomes president between Laporta and Font, it's going to be Laporta, obviously. I have hope that it will turn out well. I think there are risks to both of them, but let's sign off on hope tonight.
Agreed. So I think that'll wrap up another edition of the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. You can tap in your app and check out the show notes to subscribe. You can find us on social media. We're on Twitter at the Barcelona Pod, or at HiltonD13 for me. But the man to follow is at Barsalev. That's BARSALEV on Twitter. And we are also on Instagram at the Barcelona Pod. Closed Facebook page, tvpod.link/group, deeper dive discussions and all that. And we're on Patreon. You can help us make these shows at tvpod.link/Patreon. We're YouTube at the Barcelona Podcast. You can give us a subscribe over there. And finally, yes, I can be found co-hosting The Locker Room on FC Barcelona's official Twitch page. That's been in the works for a few months. And to respond to the quick questions, I already did 2 shows, if you already saw that. So the 2 questions that I want to quickly respond to is no, that doesn't change anything over here with what the podcast. Obviously, what happens over here is what happens over here, and what happens on the YouTube page, whatever. And no, I have no information, no connection to the club other than that. Levon, since you will be voting on the 7th, you still have the much closer connection to the club than I do, to simply even co-hosting one of the shows. So once again, I say enjoy the democracy, and Levon, thanks so much for joining me this week.
Thanks for inviting me.
So thanks to you for listening to the Barcelona Podcast. Until next time, talk to you soon, and Forza Barca. Hey everyone, before we get started, I want to tell you about Blue Wire Hustle, a brand new program where you can host your very own podcast here at Blue Wire. Hustle was created to give everyone the opportunity to take your podcast to the next level. Or, if you want to host a podcast and just don't know where to start, Hustle is the perfect place for you. As part of the program, you'll receive personal cover art, Q&As with Blue Wire's top podcasters, access to our community Discord, and an e-learning course full of tips and tricks. And on top of that, Stitcher, and all other listening platforms. And the best part is, you can get all of this for only $15 a month, the same rate as any other hosting site would charge you just for the initial setup. So whether you're starting from scratch or have an existing show that you want to grow, Hustle is an open door to leveling up your sports podcasting experience. Except since into the program is limited, so get your application in today. To apply, go to bwhustle.com. I want to start on a positive note. As you mentioned, Barcelona B did wallop on Hospitalet yesterday to the tune of 6-0. Callado, that being Alex Callado, had goals 5 and 6 in the match. EX Moriba scored a screamer. Alejandro Balde. These are all names that you've heard before here on our show for the first team. Balde was extremely influential at left back. Even Arnaud Tanas, the promising goalkeeper, was as good when called upon in net as expected to be as a teenage goalkeeper. I know Camas, the center back we've been speaking about, added a goal and was solid defensively. Unfortunately, Ander Orellana, who I've spoken about as a potential, we'll say, replacement for Sergio Busquets, and I say that as loosely and vaguely as possible. But even though he was injured, Nico Gonzalez, who usually plays an attacking midfielder, did well moving back to that pivot role. And Carlo De La Fuente had an assist in that match, and he's still looking to get his scoring boots this season, but still, he looked promising and found some space in the match. So all these players we've spoken about as earning minutes with the first team, or at least deserving a minute with the first team this year, and being too good for the third division, that all kind of came to fruition sans Conrad in that match. And all of them fulfilled that promise that they deserved the minutes with the first team. It's good to see. That's a good thing. And what makes sense why Koeman, and I think it makes sense that Koeman wanted to keep those players that needed to exercise the demons of PSG on the field against Cadiz, especially since the league is still very possible at the start of the match, that being before Barcelona dropped points. In particular, in the case of ES, he's already debuted in the Copa and the Liga, so why have him sit on the bench instead of letting him getting minutes what has been the case with Conrad. 1 goal for Conrad this season and almost 600 minutes since the last one. So I'm the one who's always saying play the kids. And you and I have been saying it in recent weeks, Frances. We have to play the kids. And I think that definitely applies to the teenagers and kids in the first team. Dest, Puz, Miguetha. Heck, I mean, Mateus Fernandez is still just sitting around waiting for his opportunity, even though he's, 23 at this point or 22. But I'm not so sold on throwing B teenagers into the first team mess right after PSG. Maybe later when things are a bit more sorted in April and May and the team isn't coming off a loss to PSG. So all that, Frances, I know you didn't necessarily watch that exciting B team match, but I needed to get those good vibes in. I needed to get that PSG weight lifted off me, so the B team helped with that. And I know we're going to discuss how Coleman did with the Cadiz match as for the rest of this show, and the things he got wrong there. But I want to ask first and foremost, in this idea of playing the kids, did he get it right by not calling up a few of the Barca B youngsters? Or would you say, regardless of all their injuries, they just can play anybody, some Joe Schmo, some kids from 16, 17-year-olds, and that Coleman really should have just gone for a huge revolution after PSG?
Right. I want to paraphrase someone who is John Toshak, which most people, I guess, have heard of. He was a coach of Real Madrid back in the 1990s. And please bear with me because this is going somewhere. And I have mentioned this in the podcast before, probably a couple of years back.
Keep it.
So Toshak
Carry it.
was
I will need
a coach that
I
was
need
always
it.
under pressure on Real Madrid.
When we will meet,
not
I'll take it from
Spanish.
you. Keep
So
it.
in
Keep
Spanish
the
capital,
text
it sort of
with
gives
you.
a pass a lot of the time. And, he had 11 starters, basically, and he had basically no one in the bench or no one of quality on the bench. And there is this sentence that it's very famous in Spain now, which is los 11 cabrones, los mismos 11 cabrones, which means, I won't translate that into English, but the 11 not that lovely people that played last week. And basically the story is that he said that after a loss on the previous week, he wants to change all 11 of them. Then they do a couple of days of training and he thinks, well, okay, maybe I'll play, I don't know, Salgado or whoever it was, or Chendo, or Mitchell, or Butragueño, or some of those. And then, long story cut short, by the end of the week, he feels the same 11 because basically he's got no one else. And this is basically what happened here. I mean, the PSG match, we recorded the podcast right after. I'm sure that most people listen to this podcast, listen to the previous. And if you haven't, go back and see how we felt at the time. But it was a match that we did worse than we thought we were going to. It was a disappointing loss. And football showed us that Barca is not ready to compete at European level. Now, there are two ways that a coach could go about that. The coach could say, okay, so let's just throw all of these guys out because they're all useless, or which is, in hindsight, probably what we should have done. But other people would say, actually, no, this was the best 11 that I decided for arguably the most important match of the season. If I show trust on these players, it means because I really did trust them. And they did really badly against PSG in Europe. Everyone saw. So you know what? I'm going to give them another chance. They're going to play against Cadiz, who we know is a team that traditionally parks the bus, especially this season. And they seem to be doing that quite well, to be honest. And then hopefully...
జల జలపాతం నువ్వు సెల 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 ఏరుని నేను సలసల నువ్వు తాకితే నన్ను పొంగే వరదైపోతాను మన జంట వైపు జాబిలంబ తొంగి చూసనే చలేని దాహమేసనే జల జల జలపాతం నువ్వు సెల 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 ఏరుని నేను సలసల నువ్వు తాకితే నన్ను పొంగే వరదైపోతాను
చలి 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 గాలివే నువ్వు చిరు 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 అలలే పల్లితే నన్ను ఎగసే కిరీటం నవ్వుతాను ఆకాశమంత ప్రళయం చుక్కలాంటి హృదయం ఇలాగ బయట పడుతోంది
నడియదారిలాంటి ప్రాణం నడివేగానితో ప్రయాణం ఇక నా నుంచి నిన్ను నీ నుంచి నన్ను తెంచలేదు లోకం జల జల జలపాతం నువ్వు సెల 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 ఏరుని నేను సలసల నువ్వు తాకితే నన్ను పొంగే వరదైపోతాను
You all should have landed on the castle. No one is here, and there is many there is no there is many loot down here.
ఇలాంటి తీపి రోజు రాదు రాదు రోజు ఎలాగ వెళ్ళిపోకుండా ఆపడం
ఇలాంటి వాన జల్లు తడపదంట ఒళ్ళు ఎలాగ దీన్ని గుండెల్లో దాచడం
ఎప్పుడో లేనిది ఏకాంతం ఎక్కడా లేని ఏదో ప్రశాంతం మరి నాలోన నువ్వు నీలోన నేను మనకు మనమే సొంతం
జల జల జలపాతం నువ్వు సెల 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 ఏరుని నేను సలసల నువ్వు తాకితే నన్ను
Please come towards castle.
చలి చలిగాలివి నువ్వు
Everyone rendezvous towards castle.
చెర చెర నువ్వల్లితే నన్ను ఎగసి కిరటానవుతా
Ever wonder how the other side lives? When you step into Premium, you get no ad breaks, just uninterrupted music, offline listening, so you can download your tracks and listen without an internet connection. Play your music when you want it, where you want it, with Premium. Upgrade now to unlock 1 month free. Tap the banner to learn more.
Can someone help me down here?
హే ఇది నేనేనా హే ఇది నిజమేనా ఆ అద్దంలో నా కొత్తగా కనబడుతున్నా ఈ సోలో బతుకే నువ్వు వచ్చేసాకే నన్ను చూస్తోంది కడదాకా నీ ఎనగే
Thank you.
గుండెల్లో మొదలయ్యిందే దీం దీం తననాది తోం తోం దీం తోం తోం దీం తోం తోం దీం దీం తననాది తోం తోం నన్నిట్టా చేరిందే దీం దీం తననతో కలిసిందే పిల్ల కన్నులకే
Yes, thank you.
చెలా పలికిందే పిల్ల
You can find out.
కొత్త సంగీతంలా నవ్విందే పిల్ల నవరత్నాలే కురిసేలా అరమెరిసిందే పిల్ల పున్నమి వెన్నెల సంద్రం నీలాకాశం నా
The area is secure now.
మారిందంట ఈ అవకాశం
Area is secure, you can come clearly.
రాదంట అనుమతినిస్తే నీ పెనివిటి ఉంటానే నీ జంట ఆలోచిస్తే ముందెప్పుడో జరిగిన కథ మనదేనంట హే ఇది నేనేనా హే ఇది నిజమేనా ఆ అద్దంలో నా కొత్తగా కనబడుతున్నా ఈ సోలో బతుకే నువ్వు వచ్చేసాకే నన్ను పోతుందే కడదాకా నీ
Come upstairs. Do you have a compensator with you? Okay, I will come down. Number 1, come up. Come upstairs. Over here, over here, over here.
పడినట్టు జరిగిందే ఏదో కనిగట్టు నమ్మేట్టుగానే లేనట్టు
Do you have a compensator?
వర్షం పడినట్టు వింతలు ఎన్నెన్నో జరిగేట్టు చేసేసవే నీ మీదొట్టు
Wait, wait, wait. Wait for me.
ఖచ్చితంగా నాలోనే మోగిందేదో సన్నాయి ఈ విధంగా ముందెప్పుడు లేనే లేదే అమ్మాయి
Let's get our other teammates with us.
ఇది నిజమేనా ఆ అద్దంలో నా కొత్తగా కనబడుతున్నా
I'll drive if you want. Thank you.
చేసాకే
Yes, come here.
నన్ను తోస్తుందే కడరా కానీ ఎనగే
Thank you.
Welcome.
మనసు మరి మత్తుగా తూగిపోతున్నదే ఏమో ఈ వేళ
వయసు మరి వింతగా విస్తుపోతున్నదే
Watch out.
అందుకే
Friendly fire is on.
కిలాడి కోమలి
I'm really sorry.
గులేబ కావలి
సుఖాల జాబలి వేనాలి కౌగిలి
Take a helmet in from their loot.
ఏమో ఈ వేళ
వయసు మరి వింతగా
Sorry.
విస్తుపోతున్నదే నీలా.
Number 3. Search for a helmet as soon as we stop. You don't have a helmet. You will get knocked down. You will get knocked out quickly. That's why.
ఓ అడుగులో అడుగు వేలా రానా
Search for a helmet fast.
వరానా
బతుకులైని వేస్తానా సర్వం జగపరా.
Does anyone want a suppressor for sniper rifle? Number 1, do you want suppressor? Yes. Over here. Take it. You didn't take it.
మనసు మరి మత్తుగా
Yeah, that's good. We will move on foot from here. On foot. Let's move. Leave the vehicle. Don't take the vehicle. On foot. Stay clear.
రహస్యాలేవో చెప్పే క్షణం ఇది
Inside this houses, come on.
నీలో ఉంచా నా ప్రాణం
The main house over here.
చూసి పోల్చుకో
In this house. Come here, inside.
మనసు మరే మత్తుగా
Upstairs.
తూగిపోతున్నది ఏమో
Take a level 2 helmet.
అంతగా
Now everyone spread in the
కలాడుకోమని ఊరుగా కావలి
don't go for a loot. Don't go for a loot. They have to stay inside these houses. Everyone spread out. Everyone spread out. I want each person inside every room. Enemy incoming. Enemy incoming. थांबा मी करीन नंतर तुम्ही झोपा हां मी आतमध्ये झोपतोय Does anyone have 5.56 ammo? 5.56 ammo, 30 rounds. Thank you. No, I got you. Okay. Oh, okay, thank you. Hi. Hi, would you like to? कुठले पुस्तक ठेवा ना उचलून हाँ बंद कर How many enemies left? Okay. The zone is on us. Yes. हाँ हो कळालं
केटके उडालो भन्नु नको यसो
कळालं. Let's move inside the zone. I have marked the location, the houses, where we left the vehicle. Slowly, we'll move there slowly. Four, four enemies are left.
Let's go. Let's go.
Check the houses before going into them. Someone is shooting on me. Shooting me. Someone is shooting me. Three alive.
Enemy.
I got him. Only one left. He's probably behind a rock. One of them is knocked out. One of his team. His team player is knocked out. Oh shit, I got knocked out. Is someone here to over here? Number 2, come and revive me. Yeah. I'll come. Can you come and revive me? Number 2. Number 3. Does anyone of you come and revive me? Yeah, thank you. Sit down. Shit. Sniper. Two. There are 2 enemies. They are rushing. Yeah, I'm ready. Take a quick match. Random map. Yeah. Ready. I'm ready. Everyone be ready.
Thank you.
Where shall we land? God. Oh, by mistakenly jumped. Try to reach on the same location. Don't land on Chukamera. Do not land on Chukamera. We'll come towards you, but do not land on Chukamera. I'll meet you. There is a scar on the top. Let's move. Come on. Number 3. Let's move number 3. We have to move. Shall we go for the drop? Check for the drop.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anyone have smoke? Sniper, sniper, sniper. Get in the vehicle, get inside the vehicle. Oh, our team member died. Shit. I'm taking first aids. Extended quick draw. Come on. He doesn't have. He's a bot. I don't have a health. He's a bot. Yeah, thank you. Inside. Come inside. I need to have health. Now come here, take a suppressor. Wait a minute, I'm just taking painkillers. Over here, for here. I want 7.62 round. We don't have that round. Let's check for some ammo. I don't have ammo left. Come upstairs. Come upstairs. Don't fire a shot right now. There is a drop over there. We will camp on the drop. We will camp on the drop. If enemy comes on the drop, we will shoot him. Don't use a vehicle. Don't use a vehicle. Yeah, it creates a noise. Don't use it. The drop is straight ahead. We'll move on this plane. And we have to move inside the zone too. So Be ready. Prone, prone, prone. No one is coming for the drop. Let's move, let's move. The zone has came. Oh shit, I'm going to die. Oh shit. Ah, the zone is near. Now be ready in for an intense fight. Just a minute. There might be enemies inside the church, so stay alert. Let's move slowly, slowly. Another drop at the same location. Let's move on the higher ground. We should move on the higher ground. Don't go for the drop. Crouch and walk, crouch and walk. It's create too much noise. Now move rock by rock, rock by rock. Wait, let me check. Let me check the map. Okay. Don't fire, do not fire a shot. Do you have a suppressor on your sniper? Use a suppressor. Use a suppressor. Use a suppressor. Use a suppressor. He will give our location. Stay here, don't move. It's too quiet. Wait a minute. Go inside the zone. Yes. He's shoot him. Shoot him. Oh, everyone died. Bye. I'll send you a friend request. Wait a minute. Okay, bye.